Good afternoon, everybody. It's 2:01 p.m. and I'd like to call to order this regularly scheduled board meeting for the Sunshine Coast Regional District. It is October 28th, and the Sunshine Coast Regional District is located on the traditional territories of the Seashelt and Squamish Nations. Just before we get going in our agenda here, we do have an item of housekeeping that we have to take care of. Due to the way that our procedure bylaw is set up, it's currently required that the meeting chair is in the room, and unfortunately, Chair Pratt was unable to be here today. So I'm looking for a motion to designate myself as chair for this meeting, and Director Hiltz has volunteered to be vice chair for this meeting. So look for a motion. I see a mover.
Yeah, I'll move that.
Thank you. Do I have a seconder? I see seconders. Thank you very much. All those in favor? All right, that's carried. Okay, so before we move on to adoption of the agenda, is there anything anybody would like to add today? I see no hands, so may I have a motion to adopt the agenda as presented, please? Move.
The amended agenda?
The amended agenda as presented. Thank you. I did see a mover and a seconder. All those in favor? Thank you. That's carried. And then just before we get going, may I have a motion to receive all minutes and reports, please, including this morning's corporate and administrative services? Moved and seconded. Seconded. All those in favor? All right. Thank you very much. Moving on to Annex A, regular board meeting minutes of October 14th, 2021. Are there any errors or omissions in there that anybody would like to bring up before we move to adopt? I see no hands. So, motion to adopt, moved and seconded. All those in favor? Thank you, that's carried. All right, moving into our reports, because we do not have any presentations or delegations. All right, thank you. Where's my vice chair? Is there any business arising from the minutes or unfinished business that directors would like to bring up? None. I see no hands. See, I knew that was coming. So, moving into Annex B, item number 3, pages 11 to 14 of our agenda. Infrastructure Services Committee recommendations number 2, 3, 6, and 8 through 10 of October 14th. Are there any that anybody would like to pull out to debate separately before we move them as a block? I see no hands, so can I have a motion to adopt these as a block, please? Moved and seconded. All those in favor? That's carried. Thank you very much. Annex C, pages 15 to 22, Planning and Community Development Committee recommendations numbers 1 through 26 of October 21st. Directors, are there any that you'd like to pull separately or to debate separately? I see no hands. May I have a motion to adopt them as a block, please? Moved and seconded. All those in favor? Thank you. All right. Page 22A, number 4A, which was the addition of the Corporate and Administrative Services Committee recommendation number 11 from this morning. I will look for a motion to adopt. Moved and seconded. Any other comments or discussion on it before I call the question? All those in favor of adoption? That's carried. Thank you very much. All right, moving into Annex D, pages 23 and 24, placement of notice on title. I'll turn this over to our Chief Building Official, or perhaps GM Hall, since I see he's unmuted.
Thank you, Chair. Under Section 57 of the Community Charter, a building official can recommend placement of notice on title where we observe a contravention of an SCRD bylaw or of provincial regulation. And so from time to time, we bring forward those recommendations. And in the report today, there are 3 properties that we are recommending placement of notice on title. And we have Chief Building Official Alan Whittleton with us here if there are technical questions, and if the owners of the property are in attendance, they should be given a chance to speak. Thank you.
Thank you very much, GM Hall. I don't see them in our gallery today, so directors, do you have any questions on this? I don't see any hands. Would somebody like to move recommendations here? Chair Pratt? Director Pratt? Chair Pratt? You're moving the recommendations as presented?
I'm moving the recommendations. Sorry, having a bit of issue with my mouse pad.
Okay, thank you. And I do see a seconder for that. Yeah, no other comments or questions, so I'll call the question. All those in favor? And that's carried. Thank you very much. Next up, we have Annex E, pages 25 through 30 in our agenda package, SCRD Board Advocacy. And I think we're going to turn this over to Chair Pratt to speak to first.
Terrific. Thank you very much. My apologies, I can't be there in person, but very happy to speak to this. So first off, I want to just say my gratitude to staff due to a very challenging schedule over the last couple of weeks. I missed getting an actual written report in, so they've put this in as the placeholder, but I do have a bit of a verbal report that I will also provide afterwards with some notes and things over regarding advocacy. So I just wanted to just start off by saying, from the election date in October 2018, the goal of the elected across the Sunshine Coast was to establish a collaborative working environment with the other governments on the Sunshine Coast. And this was reflected throughout our strategic plan and with our goals of advocacy. And this has also been reflected in the phrase Team Sunshine Coast. As elected, we've communicated and worked to improve the culture of collaboration amongst our governments, not just locally, but also at the federal and provincial level. COVID has certainly challenged us all, yet has also catapulted other opportunities, such as the use of technology for communication. We've also been able to allow other governments to take the lead in some crucial areas, such as how the town of Gibson's and District of Sechelt with the housing initiatives, and also with watershed governance and moving some other projects forward. So just a few things I'd like to highlight around some of the rules of the advocacy that we have done that have certainly that we don't necessarily report on, or even as your chair, I haven't always, we talk about it maybe in our board reports and that kind of thing, but it might not always necessarily hit the level of where we're talking about it all. So I'll start with at the federal level. One thing that our MP, Patrick Weiler, has done with the start of COVID, when the pandemic came along, it was to set up regular Zoom meetings with our MLA and himself, as well as their constituency assistants, and with Mayors Beamish and Seegers, as well as with Chief Paul. And that's been a great way to bring forward issues that were happening in our community. It started off specific to COVID and what COVID challenges what we were having, but it's continued to larger issues that communication that is happening as a whole. So it's been the place where I've brought forward updates on Church Road, on our water situation, and bringing forward that kind of information. So that's been something that it started off as a weekly, went to a bi-weekly over the course of COVID, and then has dropped off. I think we're about once a month right now, if I'm remembering correctly on our scheduling date. At the provincial level, we have done a lot of advocacy and had a lot of meetings through our processes with UBCM. But we also, for example, we had Sheila Malcolmson come here and speak to us about ocean plastics and hear about what are the issues that we're having here. We've also instituted through our term, through the last 3 years, of the quarterly meetings with our MLA. So we're a couple into those, and those seem to be working very well so far. And as well as having the quarterly meetings with the Ministry of Transportation representatives, currently Michael Braun, who is our local manager. That's been a great place to bring up local issues, and we started it off with more of a rural focus, but we certainly always welcome the other governments to the table. So whether it be SIGD, District of Sechelt, or Town of Gibsons, to bring forward their issues too. And it's provided a really great place for us to talk about what's going on in our community and making sure that they know at the local level what is happening, and also for us to get more informed about how we can work through some of these issues, especially in the rural areas. Regional district chairs, also at the provincial level, have met. They meet typically once a year. We've, through COVID, of course, it has slowed down, but we have had a couple of meetings via Zoom to talk about provincial issues that are going on. And we're all kind of in the same boat, I would say that way, with some of the issues, but we're also very unique on our makeup of the Sunshine Coast is we tend to be split 50-50 rural versus urban. And, I don't know if we can call our municipalities urban, but they are, and they are within a different structure than we are as a regional district. I will say one of my highlights of the last few years has been approaching Minister Donaldson of Flynn Road at the COFI conference to discuss DL 1313 and logging on the Sunshine Coast as well as water. And he knew who I was. He recognized my name immediately, which was fantastic because that was 2019, kind of surprised me. But there's, raising that level of visibility for us as the coast as a whole was really great, and I wish he would have run for re-election, but because we were starting a really great working relationship, and now we've got to break in a new minister. But we seem to be after watching the UBC, or listening, I should say, because we were on the phone, listening at the UBCM meeting this week, or this last month, was it? Yeah, September. Wow, has time ever flown? I think we're breaking the Minister Clanroy in quite well. And the ministry staff has always been very great and very responsive to us. One of the other highlights over the last couple of years, especially through COVID, is the increased communication through phone call meetings with the Ministry of Municipal Affairs. And that was started by Mr. Selena Robinson and continued with Minister Josie Osborne. And that has been an opportunity to speak not just with Ministry of Municipal Affairs, but also had the opportunity to speak with the Premier and raise issues of importance on the Sunshine Coast. It was started off specific to COVID, but as the pandemic started to even out, as with the same thing that happened with our MP and MLA meetings, it became a place where we would talk about COVID issues, but we would also talk about bigger issues, usually something that the ministry has brought on, and they've certainly brought on other ministers as well to discuss things that are happening within our community. So moving on to the local, more of a local focus. One of the things I think I'm most proud of us for, and it's a soft, I'm going to call it a soft skill, but I don't think we give ourselves enough credit, is this team approach that we have amongst our elected, this collaborative approach that we really set off, and we set the tone right from the beginning about working together, where we're taking the time to reflect and make decisions, yet knowing it is our responsibility to make a decision. We're thinking about the whole Sunshine Coast as a whole, how we move forward, rather than just about our individual communities. While our individual communities, of course, are very unique and have specific needs, it's important that we look at the coast as a whole. And I'm very proud in all of our elected across the coast in doing this over the last few years. And doing things such as participating in meetings with the Homelessness Advisory Committee or the Emergency Housing Committee, and making sure that we are representing our rural areas as well as the coast as a whole. Also, one thing I will say is when we came in is we knew that we needed to change the culture of how we work together and that culture of collaboration. And it's unfortunate that COVID has stunted some of our in-person, and I'm glad to see that we're starting to do more group and more face-to-face. But I look back to that barbecue that we had with staff and the tours of the facilities. And those are events that I hope as we move forward and get to a place where we can meet more face-to-face, that we can look at ways of continuing that face-to-face with our staff and finding out more about their workplaces and how they move forward, because we are really a team. Whether we are elected or whether we are hired, and that if we have big things that we need to accomplish as a group, and if we're not all on the same page, then we will not accomplish them together. So other things that we've also been working on, or things that have happened, and the regular meetings with Vancouver Coastal Health. So the senior administrators, as well as mayors and chairs, and then school district chairs as well, have regular meetings with Vancouver Coastal Health. Started off on phone and then has moved to a Zoom platform. And I think they moved to meetings too for the last one, but yeah, I wish they'd stay with Zoom. It's a little bit more easy to use. Anyways, that's an aside. But that's been a great way to keep in contact and ask questions about the health orders from an elected standpoint, and also bring forward issues that we're dealing with here on the Sunshine Coast from a health perspective specific to COVID. But once again, as we've all become more comfortable, and as we've become more comfortable with the way the pandemic has gone, we start to increase the breadth of how we can discuss these questions and the issues that are, other issues that are coming up. Anything from, if some of the focus needs to get put back onto the opioid crisis, as we've seen so many, we've seen that continue, and that hasn't stopped. From a community standpoint, also under the other, I've also got our connections through AVICC and UBCM. And then also I wanted to highlight Director McMahon's work with Climate Caucus, and because I know she's been working very hard with that, as well as bringing forward our voice of what's happening here, because we all know that this is a crisis, and we're a unique community, and what works in some areas may not work here, but we need to make sure our voice is brought forward. We've also, through the last few years, increased our communication with Quartet, and with the Quartet Regional District up in the Powell River area. And we've had one online meeting, one in-person meeting. The in-person meeting feels like it was forever ago now too, but it's a great opportunity to share and talk about things that are happening on a regional level. And I've certainly had conversations with their regional directors up there about issues that are upcoming and continuing. And I would also like to highlight that Mark Gisborne has a platform that he set up for all regional directors, specific to electoral area directors, as a forum on online, and we can get you that information if you're not signed up for it yet. But it's another really great way to collaborate and find out what's happening in other areas, and how we might be able to use the information that they've or the learning that they have done might be able to best help us as we try to move our issues and solve our problems moving forward. We also, amongst our community, I'm so incredibly proud of our community as as a team aspect in, working on cultivating a positive working relationship with our volunteers, and also through our COVID response. And our COVID response as a community has been very collaborative in how everyone has worked forward. I'd like to highlight the work of, I'm going to call her Mayor Seegers here, even though she's Director Seegers, but being an impetus to move a lot of those issues forward, and just spearheading and saying, look, we need to do more, or let's bring everyone together. And so we're working together as one voice. So for next steps, I hope it's a bit of a broad synopsis of a lot of the advocacy work we've done, but I hope that ties in with a lot of the strategic plan work. And because advocacy it's one of those issues that it feels so big picture of, how do we move these things forward? And we know we still have a lot of things going forward. I know from Director McMahon and Watershed and DL 1313. I mean, we've known this has been one that we've been trying to move forward and find positive resolution to for a very long time, and we're finding different ways of approaching it. And I really think the watershed protection piece that the town of Gibsons is really spearheading is really going to help us with that protection for DL 1313. But it's this working together and finding these ways, and that's how we advocate from different angles to help things. But anyways, for my way of thinking, or my perspective, as we move forward to look at next steps with our advocacy, is we need to continue that era, or that philosophy of collaboration and working together, especially when we're making decisions or looking to move things forward. To reflect on who we can team with to amplify our voices. And I would like to suggest that we ask at the next intergovernmental meeting that regional collaboration be a topic of discussion. And then also next steps moving forward as we look forward to October 2022, which is coming up, and that's the next election date, is one thing that's already on the back burner that will be going forward is our women's campaign school, and that'll be helping to bring forward issues as well as some advocacy items going forward. Again, thank you to staff for helping put in this placeholder in the board agenda, and thank you all for your patience, as this has been a challenging time personally for me, as I've been on the road significantly over the last few weeks, and I'm happy to have any more discussion at the board's request.
Thank you very much for that very complete picture. It's easy to forget some of the things that we've been up to as a board over the last year or two or three. Directors, Director Seegers, I see your hand up.
Thank you. I think one of the other pieces around this advocacy, having this as part of the conversation here, is as just a placeholder also for staff, because they're on the front lines trying to move some of these projects forward. And there are times when we can go at another level or a different direction to assist them. And so I would like to ask staff, is there anything on here that they, in their day-to-day jobs, that we could assist them with?
And I'd also, if I may tag on to that, meeting chair Toth. One of the things that I should have added in here was the media interviews that, I did a couple this year, but I've also done a few in previous years but the two that I did this year with Global BC as well as with the Narwhal with Judith Lavoie. Those interviews came at a crucial time with water. And I think that really helped to put some pressure onto the province too about moving some things forward. And that's one place where it worked really well to align and get on the same page as staff of, okay, well, what are the key messages that we want to make sure we have forward? We don't want to just say, look, you need to give us our license. We need to be able to back it up and say, hey, this is what we need to do. In previous years, I've done, along with the media, I've done interviews with the Coast Reporter. There's nothing like sitting in front of Sean Eckford, John Gleason, and Sophie Woodworth, and having all three of them throw questions at you for an hour at the same time, just on water, and then quickly moving over to solid waste. And so I did a couple of those over the past couple of years too, and mostly pre-COVID because it was in person. But those kinds of things help to not just inform the public, but help the public understand where the problems are and how they can help move us forward too. So, but that's where it ties in with the alignment with staff. Like if there's anything that staff can see a spot where elected can help, I think it's really key to let us know where we can help work together and amplify the voice in the advocacy side.
Thank you. I'm going to turn to CAO McKinley first and then invite any of the members of senior staff that might want to comment.
Thank you for that, Chair Toth. In listening to the presentation and thinking about the upcoming budget season, I think it's very clear that there's been a lot of effective advocacy that's been done by the board over the last couple of years. A really good example is Church Road. Some of the advocacy that the board did was very public, very vocal, very prominent. Some of the advocacy was quieter, behind the scenes, because there were things that staff were doing at a staff-to-staff level that, while it wasn't vocal and it wasn't largely public, it was assisting a lot in the work that staff was doing behind the scenes. And I think recognizing some of the successes that working together had in that, we will be actively and proactively, I suppose, looking at strategic advocacy opportunities to be built into our work plan at budget, so that we're identifying on some of these things that we're moving forward as part of the 2022 work plan and budget. Coordinated advocacy where staff and the board are working together and working together with purpose right from the get-go. So I really did appreciate the update, Chair Pratt, and I look forward to continuing to work with you on items that we continue to try to move forward. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, CAO McKinley. Is there anybody from senior leadership team that wants to weigh in or add to that? I don't see any hands up. No pressure. We're not going to make anybody speak that doesn't want to speak. Directors, any other comments or questions? Or Director Lee?
Thank you, Chair. I think as I was listening to this, I was surprised how much we did do. But then I also thought back about how much staff helped us with it. It really comes to mind when we do the UBCM ministers meetings, and we have our thoughts all organized for us, written down for us. And not only that, but staff attending and contributing to the presentations. So, and it's not really their job, but they sure do a great job of it. And I really do appreciate it. And I want them to know that. And I think all of us appreciate the help that they've given us on the advocacy part. So I just wanted to say that. Thank you.
Thank you. Director McMahon.
Right. Going forward, I am very concerned about the legislative situation with regional districts and our authorities, because particularly in the rural areas, we're very challenged. It's not only that we don't have authority over a lot of key decisions, but there's not even an avenue or a table for us to be planning with the province. And that's extremely frustrating, particularly when we're dealing with issues like stormwater. But going forward, we're looking at a regional growth plan, and it's not going to be worth the paper it's written on unless the province comes to the table and works with us. because we can't, I mean, in the rural areas, we can't plan transportation when we have no control over roads. So it is a big challenge, and I think that we need to put pressure on the province to reconsider our archaic legislation and to look at the relationship, not just between the various ministries of the province, but how do they consult with us? Well, I know how they consult with us right now. They don't consult with us. But this needs to change if we're going to deal with all of the problems of development and growth. We need a new way forward.
Thank you, Director McMahon. Director Beamish.
Yeah, I think that in the past 3 years, what I've seen significantly different is especially in the UBCM, the going forward as a team, sharing our meeting schedules, sharing our meetings, and not so much as ganging up on the ministers, but presenting a common front and on issues, and that's been very important. But also ICE-T, the representation of the SCRD and Town of Gibson's and District of Sea Shelter at ICE-T allows us to have a voice in a regional picture, the biosphere, even just the local show with Steve Sleep and where we have the talk of the towns to share information. I think those are all areas where the information and the participation by all the senior local government staff and people has been greatly appreciated, and it continues today. I look forward to that continuing in the next year.
All right. Thank you, Director Beamish. I don't see any other hands up or comments from anybody, so I think, I think we'll move on unless there's any final words, Chair Pratt.
There we go. Sorry. My touchpad is freezing up on me, so my apologies. Just a huge piece of gratitude, to all of our staff for all of their support, but also to Tracy Hinks, our executive assistant to the CAO. She is an amazing resource, and we're very, very lucky to have her to assist us and cat herd us when the need arises. But she is absolutely amazing, and just my hands up to you, Tracy, and just deepest gratitude for Tracy, for our entire staff team. We can't do what we do without you, and we all need to work together to make great things happen for our coast as a whole. And thank you all. And I'm very honored and privileged to sit at this table with all of you. And I'm looking forward to the next year as we complete this term. And thank you all.
Great. Thank you very much. Moving on in our agenda, we have no communications. We have no motions. We have no bylaws. So we go into director reports. And because she usually goes last, I'm going to pick on Chair Pratt to go first with her director's report, and then I'll look for volunteers.
Great. Thanks, Meeting Chair Toth. I get to be voluntold instead of volunteered. I will say it's been a bit of a quiet but interesting couple of weeks since our last board meeting. Our last board meeting, I had reported on that I would be attending the Half Moon Bay Community Association AGM the following week, and I certainly did with our MLA and our Member of Parliament. That was an incredibly lively debate on, well, it was 2 hours of a lot of questions coming from from the community. Thank you to Mayor Seegers for attending in the audience as well. It was, you know, they were very excited to have the MP and the MLA there, and then most of the questions ended up at the feet of their regional director. So there's a lot of follow-up to come from that because there were a lot of questions that came up after that. And I'm very pleased at how that went, and it was great. I love those kind of community events. Really, other than that, the only other thing I did want to say, because I think it's necessary to say publicly, is I will not be seeking re-election for chair of the board next week at our when we do chair and vice chair elections. I think it's really important right now for me to focus on the community and make sure that we have a lot of these projects and concerns moving forward, that we look on that and look at working together to really make sure that the community feels that their voice is being heard, as well as just we've got a lot of outreach, or I have a lot of outreach that I need to work on with them. So here I am at my chairing or not chairing our last board meeting. So, but I've been, as I've said earlier, just been very privileged and honored to be your chair and be a representative as a chair of the regional district for the last 3 years. You took an incredible leap of faith with so many newly elected, and I've been really honored. And we have a great team of. I can't say enough how much I appreciate and am humbled by the voices of the other elected on the Sunshine Coast, and by the talents that you all have, the talents of our staff, and the dedication of staff, of elected, of our community to work together and move things forward, and the patience. I know it sometimes can take a really long time to make things happen, Church Road, but these, you know, it's we're seeing great things happen, and we're moving things forward, and we've experienced so many things in a very short period of time. How many emergency operations center activations has a new CAO had to go through in order by trial? I would say trial by fire, but that might be tempting fate. So between washouts and pandemics and water shortages. So it's been incredibly great. I've really enjoyed being the chair and having that great working relationship with our CAO and with staff and with all of you. And Donna, you said last year at the elections, you know, let's hope nothing happens to Lori. Well, now we'll see what happens. But you know, I just can't tell you how much gratitude I have for and how much honor. I'm very humbled and appreciate you all so much, more than you'll ever realize. And I'm just going to stop talking because now I'm just pontificating just to pontificate. So go ahead, Alton, and mute me.
All right. Thank you, Chair Pratt. And next up, we have Director Seegers.
Thank you. Usually I go towards the end, so I thought this time I'd jump in. I want to talk about a few things that have been happening in the District of Sechelt and ongoing. The Davis Bay Wilson Creek Selma Park Community Association are holding afternoon teas. They were awarded some funds through the District of Sechelt grant from the COVID Restart Funds. The first one was a couple of weekends ago, and there are 3 more, one in November, one in January, one in February. It's a great opportunity to get seniors who have not been out and socializing to actually come out of their houses. The last one was full. This next one is already 50% full, and there's a waiting list from those who came to the first one who want to come back. But we're trying to keep it open as much as possible for new people to come out. So if you know any seniors anywhere on the Sunshine Coast who would like to come out for an afternoon tea, please have them sign up. It's free. They're following COVID protocols. They have a great assortment of goodies that they give them, and they take home the extras they don't eat. It's a lot of fun. Seashell Arts Festival ran October 8th to 24th. It's the 18th annual Seashell Arts Festival. I had the privilege to open 2 of the events, Dances from Home, which was local dancers from various nationalities, and Marcus Mosley Ensemble. And that event was dedicated in the memory of William Moisey, who, Sunshine Coast resident, very talented, multi-talented, worked in all kinds of different areas. He passed away, so it was dedicated to him. As Chair Pratt indicated, I attended the Half Moon Bay Town Hall, and yes, she is correct. The majority of the questions went to her, no matter if they were in her jurisdiction or responsibility, but they went to her. I took part, I took part in a SFU Public Square seminar with a professor of economics in the Economics of Innovation and Public Value at University College London, England. And what attracted me to this one is she's actually been hired by the provincial government to help provide a pathway coming out of the pandemic. It was an interesting hour-and-a-half seminar. We tend to look at what we are doing as an impact that it has on the economy. And she kind of turned that a little bit and has written a few books about this, in that the economy is actually caused by the choices and decisions we make. So she's looking at how does public policy actually shape economy in that way. So it was just a little different take, so there's a couple of books that she's come out with. I'm going to try and get my hands on some of them, and then I can make them available to others. Along with some of the other directors up and down the coast, I took part in the Sunshine Coast Business Walk in downtown Seashell. And what was the number one item that the stores mentioned, the winners of the awards mentioned, that they liked about being here on the Sunshine Coast was the people. They really enjoyed the interaction with the residents on the Sunshine Coast. There was one, and this was talked about in our previous meeting with Scredo, there was one business that indicated that because of supply chain issues, where they used to buy for 2 seasons, they're now starting to buy for 3 seasons. And what happens there is, yes, storage becomes an issue, but so does cash flow. Because if you have to have 3 seasons where you're having to put money out for items, it can become a bit of an issue. There have been a number of emergency housing meetings over the last while, and we're going to be moving forward with those 2 positions. And one final thing, talk to your local government. Starts up next week. It'll be running every month through till June. That's all I have. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. Next up, we have Director Ties.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Director Pratt, for your both your advocacy work over the past 2-3 years, as well as the I guess it's 3 years, and thank you for your role as chair. That's been much appreciated. I also went on the business walk with Yarrow Dertina from Scredo, as well as Colin Stansfield. And I had the privilege of actually doing a bit of a foray into the Seashell territory by going to the Wilson Creek businesses, as well as to the ones in Roberts Creek. And so I want to say congratulations to Yoga by the Sea for favorite yoga and Pilates studio and best local online fitness class, the Sunshine Coast and Golf and Country Club for favorite golf course, Mellowmania for favorite music shop, the Gumboot Cafe for favorite healthy eating establishment, and then in Wilson Creek, it was Straight Coffee for favorite cafe and coffee shop, GM Wilson Creek as the favorite car dealer, and FYI Doctors as the favorite optical store. So it was a lot of fun, and yeah, the biggest problem I heard facing businesses on the coast was staffing, because people can't find places to live, as well as just affordability of being on the coast. So it's a huge issue, and ties in with housing. So there's it's going to be a bit of an uphill battle to get the people to get the businesses succeeding as they should when you don't have enough staff. I also attended the presentation, Not Your Dad's Landfill. This was about the Roosevelt landfill down in Washington State. And as we're starting to look at other options or temporary options for our garbage, I thought I'd at least have a look at that. And it's a pretty impressive facility, and things that I learned was that they take about 2.5 million tons of garbage a year in that landfill. It's 900 acres in size, and it's basically fed by rail. So if we were to choose to get our garbage transferred down there, it would go via barge to a transfer facility in Surrey, and then get railed up to the landfill. So some interesting stuff going on there, including lots of methane capture and they're mining the landfill up there as well. So, I just thought I'd have a look at that and see what it's all about. Of course, that's not something I'm advocating at this point in time, but it's good to know about it. That's it for me. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next up, we have Director Lee.
Thank you, Chair. On October 16th, we had a trash bash up at Pender, and there must have been at least 30 people out there. And they did roadside and wildland cleanup. Had my old truck out, and we filled it up with stuff, took it to the dump, and SCRD gave us the Good Samaritan pass for the community, which was very much appreciated. There was a torrential downpour, but it didn't even dampen the enthusiasm. They just kept going, got wet. And it was funny, there was a travel trailer that had been left on the road, but it was full of junk. And they couldn't get at it, so they actually just ripped the trailer apart and put it in the truck first. It was quite impressive. And I too attended that Roosevelt landfill, Republic Company, and I just was wondering who the heck would want garbage and what they did with it. So it was interesting to go see what our options could be as we go forward. But some interesting things that I found is it actually is a public-private partnership. And the local government there actually started the whole thing by putting an RFQ out to get the thing built. And they have 85 years of capacity at that rate that they're going at, which is one big landfill. And everything is arriving by containers on a train. So they fill the containers, put them on the train, and take them out and then dump them. So it's quite a safe way of doing it. Everything is contained. There's not junk strewed along as they go. So I'm like Director Ties. I'm not advocating for them at all, but it's good to see that there is options if we need them, and I'm sure there's others like them. So, anyways, that's up to staff to find one. But I was heartened to see that there is a landfill that's actually can be quite green. They capture all their methane. They use green diesel rather than commercial diesel. And so there's ways of doing things. So that's it was interesting. I'm glad I attended. And that's it. It was kind of quiet otherwise. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Director Lee. Next up, we have Director McMahon.
Right. I think I said last board report that we catapulted very quickly this year from not enough water to too much water, and that continues. I have a lot of concerns about stormwater in my area and how to build a coordinated approach between the province and local government. I went out yesterday and took a look at the mouth of Whitaker Creek, which again, or still, is washing out, and a whole lot more material down on the beach. I don't know, there's going to be a mother big hole in Roberts Creek if this continues. I finished my Elder College class, and I will definitely do it again. It was a lot of fun. I've had several coffee dates with people to talk about stuff, and that's like getting back to normal. That was fun. And then went to the Howe Sound Forum and was in a room full of people, like 40 people or 50 people for the first time in 1.5 years, and felt very strange, actually. And also Arts Crawl. I went, it was more like the Arts Storm this year, but went to a few places. And yeah, my friends were stuck in one art crawl where all the lights went out, and everybody was in the dark trying to appreciate art. Attended the emergency housing meeting on Monday, and I will be attending the Discord discussion for electoral area discussions on Friday, November the 5th. Everybody welcome. Yeah, it's a pretty decent platform. So I think that's all from me. Thanks.
Thank you, Director McMahon. I had the note written down here, but since you mentioned the virtual platform again, I thought I'd just chime in real quick. And that it's, I really appreciate the efforts that Director Mark Gisborne is going through to try and make that platform viable. It is easy to use. It is, of course, geared towards electoral directors primarily, but he has, I expressed interest in it, and he did make provision for municipal directors to be able to join and participate in discussions as appropriate as well. So next up, we have Director Beamish.
Yes, thank you. A few things. UBCM follow-up, we had a meeting with Superintendent Julie Decker of the RCMP and Don Newman, talking about the transition of our community to policing responsibility. So some of the things that we will have to think about, and that's going to be an ongoing conversation for the next few months, as you can imagine, as well as the costing of that, the new RCMP policing contract, compounded 24% over the last 6 years is significant, certainly much more than we had anticipated in the 2019 study that we did for policing costs. Other follow-up we had is conversation with Alan Johnson Road of Flynn Road, and that's leading us into a broader conversation. At UBCM, we talked about watershed protection, following up an application that we had submitted in 2014, supported by a study, and basically nothing happening in that area relative to Flynn Road and the town. So we've going to have a meeting next Wednesday on following up on that and talking about the watershed above the town of Gibsons, the Alpenstone. I call it the Alpenstone Gibsons watershed. Probably properly called the Alpenstone watershed, but because we rely on it so strongly, we're adopting it as well. It's significant to us because you got right now 5,000 people who rely on that for their only source of drinking water. You're going to have another 10,000 plus people with the regional district and the Church Road wells relying on it. There's absolutely no protection over it in terms of what is done up there. In looking at some of the background to it, I go into the community charter. The community charter has concurrent areas of authority that apply to bylaws dealing with public health, protection of the natural environment, wildlife, and prohibition of soil removal or prohibition of deposit of contaminated soils. Municipality has all four of those as concurrent areas of responsibility with the province. The regional district, and it says on the BC government website, and this is apropos of what Director McMahon has been talking about, regional districts do not have the same scope of regulatory authority as municipalities and are empowered to act bylaws in relation to two of the four spheres, public health and the prohibition of soil deposit removal. We're concerned with the whole issue of the environment above the town and what is going on there. There's development occurring, more development occurring. There's large septic fields being developed up there above us on the watershed, logging, mining activity that directly affects the watershed. And we're not like a Iqaluit. They're not going to bring the army in to give us water if we pollute the water system that we've got. We've got one source of water. The problem with that source of water is that we live on it, we drive on it, we build on it, we don't see it. It's not like a lake, it's not like a river where we acknowledge a riparian area and we protect it. Everything that happens on top of the watershed, whether it's from my dog taking a dump, if I don't pick it up, affects the surface of the watershed. And although the aquitard is thick in some areas, it is not impermeable. And so on Wednesday, we're going to hear from our consultant, Waterline, that's doing an update of the 2013 aquifer study that they did. We'll have information from Flint Road. Hopefully, Ministry of Transportation will be there. Ministry of Health, the Water Protection Officer will be there. We'll be looking at the whole issue of, when you clear land and continue to clear land and then clear more land, we end up with drainage issues. And they come down off the side hill through the town of Gibsons and back into the SCRD with accumulated water from the town of Gibsons. And so that these are all issues that we need to address. And District Law 1313 would be one that we can hopefully prevent from adding to that problem. So it's a broad conversation. A number of different people have been invited to join. I'm looking to see how we can open it up in a broader way at the time. But the challenge we've got, the challenge that I've got is that I don't have a staff to help organize this. So I'm organizing it and putting it all together. I'll be doing a PowerPoint presentation this weekend, but we will have presentations on this, our Source to Sea project. Dave Newman will make a presentation in terms of the development requirements and processes in the town of Gibsons and the development permits that are required for the aquifer and things of that nature within the town of Gibsons that don't exist above us, so that we can take as much protection as we want on the aquifer as it is within our boundary. We have no jurisdiction to protect the aquifer outside the boundary, but we do have a responsibility in the community charter for protecting the environment. And that's part of what we see as our environment and how that environment above us impacts on the town of Gibson. So you're invited, and we'll be sending out some more information about that tomorrow. And hopefully it'll be a useful meeting. I know that I've had conversations with Flynn Road. I also know what they're prepared to say, and they are prepared to work with us in the longer term, trying to find some solutions. Yesterday, we had a housing strategy meeting with the town of Gibsons, following up on the earlier work, looking at the work for the town. I also participated in the business walks, and I heard issues around supply chain. In the technical area, one of the businesses we went to was J. Thomas, and their orders are probably 6 months in arrears. So they can get an order, but they can't guarantee delivery for about 6 months ahead for a stove or a devices. And even getting parts to repair what is out there is difficult. I know that we had ordered a gas stove upgrade in May of this year, and it was installed in October, which is great because we're warm and comfortable. But some of the people who had ordered them are waiting till spring because of the supply chain issues. And then we heard also about the employment and housing issue. It's hard for people to find work. Hard for people to find workers because workers can't find housing, and that's the issue there. So just an update, our interim CAO, Mark Brown, we've extended his contract to May the 31st and extended his hours to being kind of full employee hours. Up until now, he's been 3 days a week, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, which was not sufficient. We weren't finding that to be an effective way to run the business. So that council has agreed to extend his time frame. If Manny comes back earlier, we have a out in the contract, but we'd also have overlap with the two of them. So we're hoping that Manny will be back before then, but there's no indication of that at this time. So that's it for me. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Director Beamish. Next up, we have Director Hiltz.
Thanks, Chair. Constituency topics, stormwater, rain, and windstorm were dominant in the last few days. I got to practice using 911 for my own road, which had trees down, primary wires down. We were totally cut off from civilization for 6 hours, although I did use the phone with a hotspot to pick up my email. So we're fine-tuning our emergency household procedures, and it was a good drill. The Islands Trust meeting, joint SCRD, is really appreciated. I'm going to say on the West House Sound side, and the Islands trustees really appreciate that, and to be able to interact with their staff is really, really great. House Sound Community Forum, thanks to Director McMahon. She accompanied myself and a few other people from Area F, and we went on a water taxi to a divested dock, which is owned by the Bowen Island Municipality, which hosted the the House Sound Community Forum this time. So we're not the only local government that has divested docks, so it was nice to see that, that we're not alone. There was, the stats were about 47 people in person and 20 via Zoom using a meeting camera called a Meeting Owl, which worked. I'm not sure. I'd be interested to hear how the virtual participants' experiences were with that. I think the dominant aspect of the Howe Sound Community Forum was the international attention paid to the El Katsum Howe Sound Biosphere designation, and what that's going to do to the Howe Sound area over the next our lifetimes, I suppose. And you know, the proximity with a couple million people in Metro Vancouver, the Fraser Valley, and people are wondering about this. So we now have this designation. There's this designation. How to find some sustainable funding for it. The initiative in some ways came out of the Howe Sound Community Forum. And so some of the funding items were a charity status for the biosphere. And, you know, there is this idea, could we have one service for all of Howe Sound to have 10 or 12 local governments all participating in one service area? So that has yet to be solved, and Karen Elliott, the mayor of Squamish, has taken on the task of looking to bring people together to help solve this funding problem or issue. General things in Howe Sound, growth and housing affordability and tourist economic recovery were dominant. An example of the housing development, Fury Creek, which has been on the books for over 30 years, is getting close to being, the rezoning is happening. So it's one of these long time projects, which kind of ties in with the next April is going to be the 20th anniversary of the creation of the Howe Sound Community Forum, which was hatched at Fury Creek. So there is thinking that it might be held next April at Fury Creek as a nice way to celebrate the 20th anniversary, or else it's going to be in Whistler. Library Board, Gibson's and District Public Library Association, board meeting was held. And then the town of Gibson's participated in the Holland Park process, which the town was hosting, and there was the MODIS planning team, which we did a charrette to kind of generate some drawings and ideas on how Holland Park, the Holland lands will work together with all the various other pieces of the town of Gibson's. And then the next meeting is November 17th. And by the way, October is Library Month as proclaimed by the province of BC, and October 25th is Library Day. What else with libraries? There's lots with libraries. I'm going to participate in a policy and procedures workshop sponsored by the BC Library Trustees Association, so we'll get to listen to policies and procedures from the library side opposed to the local government side. So I'm looking forward to that. And that's it, Chair. Thank you.
All right, thank you for that update. Director Paul, it's great to have you with us today. In your turn to provide an update, if you wish.
Hi, I don't have much to say right now, but I'm happy to be a part of the board again. And I think I heard Lori, sorry, my connection's really weak and it keeps cutting out on me. Is this your last board meeting?
As chair.
As chair.
Okay. Okay. Sorry about that. And yeah, I am kind of pulling double duty. We had an impromptu meeting for another issue with the nation, but yeah. Not much more that I can add to that in regards to any updates from the nation side. I know Warren is on a very personal and, lunch dates with Mr. Director Lee, and I'm looking forward to being a part of the team again on a regular basis.
All right, thank you very much. I like to go last because then I can madly write notes and think about things while everybody else is talking. So at Committee of the Whole yesterday, we did have an update with the Seashelt Community Archives. Our staff we're basically looking for permission to proceed with forming a 3-year agreement with the Sunshine Coast Museum to have them take over the operations of the Seashelt Community Archives. And so, we still have our procurement process, our intent to award process that we have to go through. But I think that'll provide some much appreciated stability for the Seashelt Community Archives. It's largely been sort of a one-person show up to now, and we need to make sure that it's got the security that it needs to go forward in the future. Unfortunately, I missed the business walk. I was instead attending a social procurement workshop, which we had a really good staff turnout from the district of Seashelt. I attended part of the day. Mayor Seegers popped in for part of it as well. It was really interesting to hear about the things that our staff are doing in terms of modifying contracts to include social objectives in our procurement and purchasing. And one of the things that is a common misconception is that it costs so much money to do social procurement or put that lens on things, and anybody who's going seriously into it is finding that it doesn't really add cost at all. It just has benefit for the community, and particularly vulnerable groups if they choose to prioritize vulnerable groups. TELUS hosted a public info meeting for their residential apartment complex in Seashelt that they're proposing. Not a huge turnout, but some really good questions from the public. So looking forward to that going forward. It is just one of the projects that's making up over 200 units of rental housing that are in various stages of approval in the district of Seashelt. We of course have had our own flooding issues in Seashelt, mostly due to leaves and plugged up drains. But it's too bad Director Ties isn't here. He and I were outstanding on Hackett Field in the middle of a miserable downpour, waiting for them to cancel our daughter's soccer games. So good times. And then, yeah, with Director McMahon, you mentioned being able to have some coffee chats with people, and I had one earlier this week, and it was a little, it was good to have the conversation. I will flat out say that. It was good to have the conversation with those members of our community. It was a little weird not sitting down one-on-one with people in so long. Yeah, we did do it at a coffee shop, but yeah, no, it was good. That's really all I have to report, and I don't see any hands up for people jumping up and down having forgotten anything, but we will move on. We have no new business, and we have no in-camera session. So with that, I'll look for a motion to adjourn. Moved and seconded. All those in favor? That's carried. Thank you very much. Now, I